Okay, so this step in the Tempera Resist, you guys are going to actually apply the Tempera paint. So what I've done is I've just got like a paper plate from my house. The best kinds of paper plates are the ones that have a coating on them or a plastic paper plate so that the paint doesn't soak in. It's not a big deal, it just is wasteful. So just grab what you have and that's fine. You guys have your tempers in those little containers and you've got the three primary colors plus white. I'd prefer you not mixing the white with the colors because what will happen is the whole point of the tempera resist is the fact that the tempera is actually soaking into your watercolor paper and it's creating a resist or a barrier for the India ink. So any place that you actually have white paper showing, the India ink will seep into and create black marks. Now, doing it correctly, it's going to look awesome. Doing it incorrectly, it's going to look like black marks all over the page and you won't be able to see your image. So that's what I'm going to teach you today. With the tempera, like I said, it's going to soak into the white paper. So when it's soaking, we're actually going to end up running all of this under water and rinsing off the tempera. And when that happens is your tempera actually gets quite a bit lighter. So my red will look a little bit more pink than it would be bright red. So everything's going to be toned down much more. It's going to look more of a pastel color. So if you mix white with it now to apply it, it's going to look even super light, almost to the point where you might not be able to see it. Okay, so stay away from that. Just make sure that currently your colors need to be bright and bold. What I'm going to do is make sure that I don't have the same colors next to each other. So my plan is to have this red, which is going to look more pink, and then I'm going to make a purple for the flowers like they were intended to be, or that's how they are in life, and then yellow here, and then I'll do like a green stem. Okay, so those are going to be my color choices. I'm actually going to put white in the background because I want to keep it light, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So I actually don't have any colors that are the same that are touching each other. Now you might, and that's not a big deal, but I'm going to show you how we're going to go over that, okay, and how we'll work around those um, black outlines. Okay, so I'm going to start up here. That way I'm not dragging my hand through my wet paint. The trick to painting with your tempera resist is keeping this tempera really thick. The thicker the better because that's going to soak into your paper more. Notice that I am keeping my pencil lines exposed. You have to do that. Anywhere you have a pencil line is actually going to end up being a really thick black outline of your India ink. So I'm doing my best to keep that around. Now, brushstroke showing, not a big deal because that's just the surface. So I'm trying to keep it really, really clean. My edges super clean. The cleaner the edges are, the better they're going to be for your end product. So you can tell I'm keeping that on pretty thick. Now, I'm actually not going to worry about blending another color. You can. Maybe I'll do that here in a minute and put another color with it. But whatever paint color is touching the paper is what it's going to turn into. So if I paint this and I'm like, you know what, I don't really like the red, I want to change it, well, it's actually too late because it's not like with acrylics that you just paint over it to fix it. Because, like I said, the tempera is soaking into your paper. So whatever paint is touching the paper is what it's going to be. So the top surface here, changing it isn't going to change what you've already painted underneath. Like I said, I'm putting that on pretty thick because I want to soak that in. See how I'm being real careful, not covering my pencil lines. So when I paint the background, I'm going to have to come right up to my pencil line that's why we have that calligraphic line that we talked about. Okay, so I got all of this painted red, and you can see I stayed as best as I could by keeping my pencil lines exposed, okay? Here, I kind of boogered up that little corner right there, but I'm just going to end up painting the background a little smaller. That way I've got it, got that piece covered. So what I'm going to do now, I've already got red in my brush, so I'm being smart by time management and not wasting paint. And so I want to make purple for my leaves here, so or my petals. So I'm actually going to just grab a little bit of my blue and make my purple that I want. And with this one, I'm going to try to do a little bit of a gradation just to show you what'll happen on the final, just to see. So a gradation is, or a value change rather, would be from a dark purple to a light purple, or I can make it go from like a red violet to a blue violet. So I'm just mixing a little bit here to make my purple. And then again, the same concept is to stay around those pencil lines. Okay, keep the pencil lines exposed. It's really dark. Keep the pencil lines exposed. Let's see if that. I don't know if that's any better for you to see it. Okay, keep those pencil lines exposed. It looks black on the screen, but it's not, just really dark purple. Mix some red with it as I go around here. This is going to be really difficult in that spot, but try to keep your paint thick, even in the tiniest spots. Just try to keep it thick to keep that tempera, to get it to soak into that watercolor paper. And it's watercolor paper because it will withstand the amount of water we're going to end up putting on this thing. We're literally going to wash it underneath the sink and underneath the faucet. So that's why we need to get this paint on here super thick so that we can wash it off at the end. I'm getting a little too red. I kind of want some more purple in there. So I'm going to keep working on it and getting it to be more purple as I come through these leaves. Okay, so I've got my red and I've got my purple leaves. I even had to get in this eensy beensy little tiny spot here to separate. You'll notice that there is a line around everything. This is my original pencil line that has been exposed. And so I want to keep that. Anywhere I leave raw watercolor is going to end up turning black. So if you make a mistake and you accidentally leave white paper showing, that will turn to black because there's nothing there to create a barrier. Okay, I want this to be yellow, and again, I'm being smart with my time and my materials because my next color, I want to do green. So I'm already going to have yellow in my brush. So that means once I get this painted, I can go ahead and just make my green and then paint that section and then move forward. Again, really thick paint. you'll notice here the color actually does a little bit of a transition. So hopefully I try to make sure that that transition was, oh, come on. I was hoping that transition was going to, sorry, we're having issues here. Goodness sakes. Okay. I was trying to show that transition, but remember that transition from more of a blue violet to red violet is actually touching that paper. That transition is not on the top surface. So keep that in mind, that if you're going to do a transition, you have to actually get that color to touch the paper. So I'm going to continue to paint around here, and I got to be real careful with that yellow because I'm wondering if I have any stray pencil lines underneath this yellow. I wonder if it will actually seal it in, and we'll end up seeing pencil lines at the end product, which would not be good. So I'm trying my best to not put any of this light yellow over the pencil line as much as I can. Hopefully to keep that yellow clean at the end product. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make some green stems. Now I've got to the edge over here, so I never cut my paper. I kept the border on here on purpose. So I'm going to just take my paint right up to the, when I made green. So my son's standing here. Ryan, do you know how to make green?
Yeah. All you have to do is, wait. What you have to do is take the yellow and the blue and combined, which makes green.
Oh, good job. So I'm coming back and I'm putting green here. Now I'm going to have two colors of green that are going to touch because I want these little leaves to be green and I want the stem to be green. So I'm just going to adjust the value a little bit just so that we get a little bit of a change.
So it's more like naturey in real life.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to show you a little trick. I'm actually holding this backwards up to my light. And I wanted you to see the outline around the letters and the outline here. Those little white marks are actually going to turn black. So that's kind of a good check for you guys to see how everything is separated even down here. So all of these little marks are going to be black outlines everywhere. So that will be a good check. Okay, so what we're going to do in the background is going to be called scumbling. If you guys remember doing that when we were working with our acrylics. I'm going to paint the background white, so that's going to be really hard because clearly I'm doing white on white. But that little trick I showed you about looking at it through like the light, you should be able to kind of see where you've been. The first step though is I'm going to take a tiny brush because I want to make sure that I get right up to the edge of my letters and my shapes. Again, keeping the background, or I'm sorry, the edge of my letters exposed with either a pencil line or a white paper showing. And I'm going to apply it pretty thick. I haven't started scumbling yet because I'm going to do it more so around once I get past this because it's going to be really hard to do in here with it being so tiny. So I'm going to start by putting white and masking that all the way around. So I started here. I'm to a spot where I've kind of got some open space. So I'm going to make sure that I drag my brush really close to the edge. But once I come up, I'm actually going to just do some lines this way with my brush and kind of make the background a little bit more thin. And I'm wanting my brush to skip a little bit. So I'm going to drag that up just so that the paint is thinner and it's probably, hopefully it's skipping over a little bit to where we have tiny itty bitty spaces of white paper showing. And it'll make this like really cool texture for the background. You can do that texture anywhere. You do not have to do it just on the background. I could have done it on my petals. I could have done it anywhere where a more rough texture would be appropriate for my work. Now, I don't want to forget this. Anywhere you leave white paper exposed, it's going to turn black. So I can't forget my little A in the middle here. All right, so I'm to this last corner down here, and I'm going to go right up to it and come around, drag that glob of paint. Uh-oh. See, I knew it. I'm Russian. I got right up against my paint, so there's not going to be a black outline separating the background from the edge of the stem. But oh well, it is what it is. Okay, so I went thick around, and now I'm just going to quickly scumble through. And then I'm going to hold it up to the light so you can kind of see how. Can you see the texture through there? How it's kind of coming through the light. And so hopefully that's the texture that will be applied after the tempera, when the ink gets covered over it. Okay, so we're noticing that I've left my pencil lines as best as I can. Anywhere that I boogered up that I've got like a color touching a color, there will not be a black line separating it. You can use that to your advantage, or it might look like a mistake when we're done. It is what it is. I did that right here too. I got yellow and white are actually touching, and there's no paper exposed between the two colors. Like I said, this part actually I think will be okay because I've got like a thick line that's tapering into, that won't be a line that's tapering back into a thick line. So I've actually, even though it's a mistake, I've actually created an implied line coming through here. So hopefully some of that will work out to your advantage when you guys are done painting.